I'm Amanda and I'm a heroin addict. Growing up in a large family, I always thought, I'd have that instant connection, those built-in friendships. But for me, I never really had that. It was really strange. I have 3 sisters and 2 brothers, but I was never really close with any of them. I graduated second in my class when I did finally graduate high school, and I got scholarships, and all of these amazing things were happening to me in my life, but I could never feel that, that deadness I felt in my soul in terms of never feeling good enough or never feeling like I fit in anywhere, even with my own family. I was pretty good, if you want to call it good, in terms of drugs and alcohol. I really didn't do any of that till a little bit later in life. I remember the very first time I ever drank. I was 19 years old. I was at my sister's house, and she had made some orange bellinis, or some girly drink, and I remember having like a really small glass of it, and it tasted good, don't get me wrong, but it was that feeling and that warmthness that I felt, that I had that desire immediately of like, okay, I feel good, I feel okay. And it was fun, I was immediately hooked. I think that's really where the turning point for me in my addiction is the first time I ever did oxycodone 30. Now, not only am I taking pills recreationally, I'm also now snorting them. They're not prescribed to me, obviously. But I spent a lot of time kind of just zoning into the computer and watching TV and not really doing much. I wasn't going to work 100% of the time. Somehow I managed to keep the job. I would be there physically, but mentally I was thinking, when am I going to get off work? I can't wait to get off of work. I just want to get high. I just want to feel better. I just want to not feel anything. So this goes on actually for a few years, and I tell myself it's okay, I just use pills recreationally, and I don't have a problem. I'm not a drug addict. Until one day we were looking for opiate pain medication. We could not find it, and then a friend of ours said, well, I know where to get some heroin, and it's the same thing and it's so much cheaper. And I was getting sick at that point, starting my detox process, and I would do anything if it meant that I would have been physically better at that point. And so I was like, okay, fuck it, let's go get some heroin. The more I used heroin, the less the pills became effective, and I got to the point where I would only use pills if I had to. The high that I got from heroin was, again, it brought me back to how I felt when I first took that drink, that warm, fuzzy feeling of everything is okay. I'm okay, you're okay, everything is okay. When I wasn't high, I suddenly had to face, because I'm no longer high, and oh shit, life is actually real and it's actually happening. I don't want to feel like this, and I have no other solution, so let's go get some more heroin. My boyfriend and I at that time were trying to re-up, and so we get into the car. The last thing I remember is going back home because we couldn't find anything, getting some Ambien sleeping medication, because again, I will use anything to make myself feel different and to stop that detox process. And I take some Ambien, he takes some Ambien, and because I'm so gone in my mind about what's okay and what's not okay, we decide to go back out looking for more heroin. The next thing I remember, the sound of the jaws of life cutting me out of my own car. The ambulance paramedic told me, you've been in an accident, we're taking you to the hospital, and I'm like, okay. Next thing I remember is waking up in the hospital, laying on a cold bed, waking up 8 days later. They had put me in a medically induced coma because I had 8 cracked ribs, punctured lung, punctured liver, and I had completely shattered my right femur bone, broke my foot in 5 places. Come to find out what actually had happened is he had hit another car head on going about 40 miles an hour. And the car completely compacted around me. We were in a little 2-door Honda Civic at the time, and I was definitely lucky to be alive. The insanity of my disease tells me that you almost died, Amanda, but it really wasn't that bad. You can do it again. So I did moderate for a little bit of time, because now, of course, they're giving me legal pain pills. I tell myself it's okay. They're prescribed to you by a doctor, and it was okay for a couple of weeks. My family rarely saw me. Every time they would invite me to something, I'd always have some excuse as to why I couldn't show up. Oh, I'm sick, or I don't have the gas money, or what have you, and usually it's because I'm waiting on my dealer and they just haven't shown up yet. The following 5 months were the absolute worst 5 months of my entire life. I had actually gotten money from the accident, a settlement, a pretty large settlement, and it was probably the best and worst thing that ever happened to me. I quit my job of 9 years that I somehow managed to keep for 9 years by God's grace because I needed more time to get high. You know, I had all this money and I needed all the time in the world to just get fucked up. After this 5-month period of quitting my job, spending an exorbitant amount of money on alcohol, there came a point in time when my roommate found my stash, and she basically put it in my face like, what the hell are you doing? I thought you were past this. You're smarter than this. Like, you're screwing up your life. You know, don't you want to be free? I'm not typically an emotional person anyway, and especially on heroin, I'm like catatonic normally, and I just broke down crying because I knew that she was right. I knew that I needed to do something different this time. So what I did was called a friend of mine who was still in recovery, the one that had been checking in on me, and I'm like, my life is completely insane. I can't stop using heroin. What do I do? And so she said, meet me at this location. I literally show up to this public place in a nightgown down to my knees, in the biggest pair of jeans that I owned, throw up all over myself. I hadn't showered probably in 5 days, but I didn't care. I was so emotionally and spiritually and physically bankrupt, and I had that gift of desperation so much that I didn't care who saw me at that point. I just knew that I needed to get help. I immediately got involved in a 12-step fellowship. I started going to meetings. I really got connected to sober people, and I started to learn from them. I remember in the very early days of my recovery, not really quite feeling like myself yet, and being scared of people because I never really learned how to be vulnerable when I was younger, and definitely not when I was using. I started to build these friendships and these relationships with people, but at the same time I still felt so uncomfortable in who I was, and I don't want to go to meetings, it's so awkward, like I'm awkward, no one likes me, and all these self-defeating thoughts that I had at the time. But I remember at the same token, I couldn't wait to go. I'm gonna learn, I'm gonna grow, and I'm gonna stay sober, you know, which is all I really wanted at that time. I really thought I knew who I was, but I had no idea. In terms of who I was at my core when no one was looking, I had no idea, and that always scared me, you know. The thoughts in my mind that I can't process, but I'm too afraid to tell anyone about. You know, I got to redesign or get this higher power in my life that I choose to call God. I have a God of my understanding in my life. I have relationships with people that are actually based on good things, you know, love and trust and respect. I'm very blessed with the people in general that I have in my life today, but especially the women of recovery, you know, have really shown me what it means to be okay in my own skin. Life is just amazing, you know. I'm a good employee today. I've been at my current job now a little over a year. I have been promoted once since starting there, and I don't say that to be all like, oh, look at me. I say that because these are the gifts of recovery for me, is that not only can I show up to work, but I can do a good job, and I can do it in the right frame of mind. You know, today I live my life trying to focus on others and to be of service and to be the best me that I can be. Life is all about perspective. You know, if I look at things and I look for the negative, that's what I'm gonna see. If I look for things and I look for the positive, then that's what I'm gonna see, you know, and I try my best. I'm not perfect. You know, a lot of people say like, oh, I became who I used to be. That's not the case for me. I became someone I never was, which is exactly what I needed. I believe that we go through everything for a reason, and until it teaches you the lesson, it's gonna always be a part of your story. And I don't ever wanna use heroin as a solution ever again, not with the tools that have been given to me. So again, if you're struggling or if you're new to recovery and you don't really know what to do, reach out, you know, and hang around people that have what you want. You know, if you want to be a spiritual person, hang around with spiritual people. If you want to have fun, go have fun with people. There's so much fun in recovery. I'm out and about and having relationships with people and living life the way that it was designed to be lived, you know, one day at a time, of course. I found more fun in recovery than I ever had when I was using.